Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about the Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered because I have been playing it for the last week, and this new version of the game is incredibly different than the original. This is more than just like a graphics patch or some extra cosmetic skins. This is essentially a completely new game with a new combat system, all this added cut content, and most importantly, this game originally had fixed camera angles. They made it actually third person. An actual movable camera has been made for this game. And I gotta say that I am very impressed by it, but I do still have some problems. Let's discuss. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now I do want to start with just a little teeny tiny caveat that I think is kind of important. So when I was growing up, I really enjoyed the Legacy of Kain games. I played Blood Omen, and then of course I played Soul Reaver 1 and 2, and I absolutely became obsessed with Soul Reaver 1 and 2. In fact, I talked about that again. Last year they did a remaster of the Soul Reaver games, and I was obsessed with that remaster. So when they announced this, the Defiance Remaster, I was excited. It turns out this is a completely different team. That basically the same publisher hired a different group to make it. This is even more ambitious than the Soul Reaver remaster was. These graphical changes are even more intense. The environments look even better, and the new combat is drastically different. But I do want to say that going into this, I was in an odd spot. I have never played the original Defiance. Never once. Not even for a second. I never even saw gameplay for it. When this dropped originally back in 2003, at that point, I was honestly kind of burned out on the whole Soul Reaver saga. I mean, they'd done so much like time travel and alternate timelines and fake endings and stuff that when this game came out, even though they were saying this is the end of the entire series, finally they're going to team up, I was still just in a spot where I really wasn't interested in it. So let's start with just the one thing that you kind of got to know about Defiance. This game is $25 because it's just one game, whereas obviously the Soul Reaver one, that was like 2 games. You think you're paying $50 for it, right? This one game, though, you kind of have to play literally every game before it. They explain nothing. They just straight up drop you into it. Now, Defiance, this was the end of it because finally, these two people in the Blood Omen games, we were playing as Kain, the vampire god, and obviously in Soul Reaver, we were playing as Raziel, the betrayed vampire lieutenant who travels through the underworld and becomes like his own sort of spectral god in a way. But in Defiance, they're teaming up in a way. They're trying to basically fix the timeline and defy fate. Now, they do not say any of it. This is the kind of game where if you played the original, I think it's fun to play this new version of it, but I do think that this has a pretty steep learning curve. If you're going to just try and play this, you need to at least watch one of those videos that says like entire timeline explained. Literally, first level starts and it's like, all right, here's Kain trying to stop the timeline. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? And it's like, all right, here's Raziel in the depths of hell. Whoa, wait, what's happening? What's happening? They just don't really sort of acclimate you to it. Now, again, that's just personal preference, but I will say that even if you don't really understand the storyline, the thing is that the new combat is so freaking good, but even that, I kind of feel like in this game, you have a lot of additional powers that we've built up from the previous games. The telekinesis, having the Soul Reaver itself just pop out of your arm. There's a lot of great abilities that we earned, that we really did entire boss fights about in those original games that you play in this game, right? And it feels great to be using them, but I do kind of wish that people kind of grasped how amazing this combat is. And that does kind of require that previous game build-up. But let's talk about that new combat system. So in the original games, a lot of these like games that are being remastered from the Soul Reaver series right now, the original combat could at times be unforgiving because it just wasn't super well designed. Like in the original game, enemies would just be constantly hitting you in the back. You'd have to like manually target them one by one. And it was just kind of, it was functional. Obviously, I beat those games. But this new version of it, now, whenever you press L1, it actually goes into combat mode where you actually target people and even do entire combos easier. Square is your basic attack. Triangle is like your uppercut. But whenever you weaken people, you can also press triangle to stab the sword into people and soak up some of their soul to do your big super ultimate attacks. And what's interesting is that there was always this like off-screen XP system. Your sword levels up throughout the course of this game, but the original version, it would just happen randomly. Just sometimes you'd kill somebody and it'd go, your sword is leveled up. You got a new ability. Now, they put in an XP bar in the menu, which to me is so different. I'm not even sure. I guess it was always in the code. That to me is like a really drastic, cool change, because sometimes there are areas where you can, if you want, grind, kill people on purpose. But it does kind of feel good to just do all their like abilities at once. Telekinesis, throw a guy off a bridge, do the combo attack on the wizard in the back that's buffing everybody, suck some blood out of somebody to keep your powers going. Now, this is the one thing that I kind of didn't like about the combat, which is that Raziel and Kain play identically, literally. Same speed, same abilities, same gliding. Now, there is a lore reason for this. The whole thing they talked about, the whole point of this entire timeline is that they both have the same gifts. That Raziel and Kain were basically being bestowed these same like cleansings as they became less human and more divine, as they call it in the vampire lore. Of course, it makes sense they'd play the same, but I kind of wish they had something along the lines that made them play more different than they do. Like, Raziel gets different styles of his power blade that are like dark focused or light focused, and Kain gets extra little skills of his own, but for the most part, they play 99.9% the same. Now, each of the chapters in this game alternate. You have like a Kain mission, then you have like a Raziel mission escaping hell, and then a Kain mission trying to like defy the timeline. And it is cool that it alternates back and forth. Their stories are sort of happening in tandem, so it is kind of see like, meanwhile, in the underworld. I like how the story unfolds, and I like the gameplay. I just wish there was a bit more of a difference between the characters, but it still fits well, and I honestly like the new combat system a lot. But the main thing that is just wild, the free cam. I mean, it's been decades since I've even heard the term free cam. Early over the shoulder, like the original like ability to move the right stick and look around in games, they used to call that free camming because it was just such a new concept. People had to try and like describe it to people. This has full free cam. You can just turn and look. Now, in some of the areas, it doesn't super work. It doesn't get stuck on stuff or anything like that. But sometimes when you're looking left and right, you can see that it's just not areas you're really meant to see. Not that they look bad, but definitely the center of every single one of the environments is the most detailed part with the most like cool iconography, cool little details, a lot of times the cool power-ups. But free gaming, it's just cool that I can play this entirely like a current day game, even though this is a 2003 classic with a fresh coat of paint. The new graphics, you can at any time, if you click the right stick, switch between the old graphics and the new graphics. I will say the original does still look pretty decent. I'm not going to pretend the original version looks bad. I mean, I think a lot of PlayStation 2 games, especially very stylized ones, age pretty dang good, but this one, it looks really dang good. The new version of the graphics look really dang good. Like, I still think that some people don't like that Raziel originally in the game, he looked very different in cutscenes than how he looks in the gameplay. Now, he now looks identical. He now has that super cool, like, billowy cloak. Personally, 10 out of 10. I love the new Raziel design. And I say that obviously as mostly a Soul Reaver fan. I think this honestly looks absolutely incredible. You can also even like turn on this photo mode to really zoom in on the different environments and textures or the characters themselves. But the final thing about this that I think is very interesting to me is that they actually did what they did for the Soul Reaver games, where in the Soul Reaver collection we got last year, they added in these lost levels. Now, these are basically just something for the super nerds like me. They're big empty spaces. A lot of times there's stuff that exists in the game, but you can see that originally they had a very different idea for it. So you get to basically run around in these like big empty maps that are alternate versions of what appear in the final game. But to me, I kind of appreciate that kind of stuff. I really just like game development, and especially because it is interesting that this was the last of the Legacy of Kain games. This game just sold so bad, they ended up basically just canning the rest of it, so we never got another Legacy of Kain game. It is interesting to me that, honestly, they did do something special. If you get the $30 special edition instead of the $25 normal edition, there is a demo for the canceled final game. There was actually going to be a game called Dark Prophecy. This has a demo for Dark Prophecy, and to me that's super cool, but I think it is weird that Dark Prophecy still plays exactly like this. It still plays exactly like Defiance. Dark Prophecy, the demo, is also only about 2 or 3 minutes long. It just shows some new areas. The new areas look incredibly good, but there's no cutscenes, there's no voice acting. It's just like walking up to some big mysterious altar. It is interesting to think about the fact that they really were developing another game before they just had to cancel it and move on. I gotta say that I like this game a lot, but I always think that is a bit of a problem if you can't play a game on its own, right? That's just a personal thing of mine, is that, I think there needs to be some sort of build up to the payoff, and the fact that this game is just payoff. As a person that is a big fan of Soul Reaver and old school Blood Omen and stuff, I think this game is fantastic, but I am a bit hesitant to recommend it if you don't already know what it is. I almost think that this is primarily intended for people that played the original and want to replay it. If you have already played every other Legacy of Kain thing, this is a fantastic game. But if you're a newcomer thinking this is a good place to start, no. Get the Soul Reaver collection first at the very least. Well, this has just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. Please tell me what you think about this in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.